I do this,
Okay.
I'm hoping to get bigger, but I don't know. I may lose it.
Well, may I ask everyone to mute unless you have a question or offer a comment? Um, Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve Ludmerer on the board of Recreation District. Deborah Van Brunt is in the room also, and we expected other guests who may still be arriving. What I'm going to do tonight is have basically an open discussion. I'm going to try to review the history and background of where we are today, some personal and comments and some principles of club finance that may help you better understand how the board thinks about club operations. I'm going to talk about the master plan and the projects we're looking at, but I'm going to primarily focus on what I view as the space needs. I've introduced some slides that separate what most folks would call the musts versus the wants, and looked at the impact of a smaller bond to handle what is believed to be the musts versus a larger one that might encompass the wants as well. I'll talk a little bit about the alternative approaches to capital funding, and then I'll talk specifically about Heathfield and Lansdowne as neighborhoods and how they compare in cost of ownership to some homes in Lakewood Ranch. During the conversation, I'll entertain questions at any time, but if I'm going to cover it in a couple of slides later, I will just tell you to hold on and try to keep it focused on what we're talking about at the moment, rather than and we'll have plenty of time at the end for discussion or things that I don't bring up. Okay, with that, let me start with the history. I was part of the planning group and was there during the process. The planning group made two representations. One, that the club would generate an operating surplus annually. In other words, homeowners would not have to subsidize the day-to-day operations of the club. They also noted that there would be no assessments for 3 to 5 years. We recognized we were buying a 30-year-old infrastructure. We're buying it without capital reserves. And we knew that we were going to need additional capital investment, but we thought we had enough to, and we did have enough to cover ourselves for 3 to 5 years. I'm missing a slide here. Where'd that go?
Here.
Do you want me to scan it in real quick?
But one second here, let me see if I have it elsewhere in my, okay. A slide got omitted. Well, I'll describe it. It basically, we had about $4 million from the original bond to use for capital investment. We had a surplus from the club of about $700,000. And we had a non-operating gain of about $800,000. That was about $5.5 million.
I think it's up there.
Oh, It is here, it's,
I think it was up there.
there it is, okay, excuse me. Okay, it was about $5.7 million. The indoor and outdoor dining innovations, we used about 2.5 million. Pickleball and croquet, about 400,000. The parking lot, we have 75,000 going into it now. We needed some kitchen equipment. We needed some work in progress. The pro shop move has been delayed. We improved the greenside bunkers, the tee boxes, the cart paths on all 27 holes. And we had the various equipment needs. We also designated approximately $500,000 in operating reserve funds to handle emergencies. Remember, we had no reserves to start with. A typical business would have 60 days of expenses or more, 90 days of expenses as reserves. We're looking at about 45 days of direct expenses as reserves. And that basically consumed the $5.7 million. Oh, the other point I'd make is the statement we made that the club would generate an operating surplus every year. I know there are a lot of eye charts here. I'm sorry about that. It's a lot of information. I hope you have a good computer screen in front of you. I recognize the type is small, but in using the sources we have and to give you comprehensive information, there's a lot of numbers in today's talk. An operating surplus was generated in every year, including when COVID came and basically shut us down for a period of time and closed dining and other functions in the club. What else has happened since we purchased the club in 2019? A few things. Demand for outside dining has gone up dramatically. For those of you who were here before in 18 and previously, we never had outdoor dining in the evening. Now we do perhaps 100 covers out there in the evening. That puts a burden on the kitchen to give everyone timely, customized service that they expect at University Park. Demand for golf has been good, driven by COVID and maintained, even with very aggressive pricing. Our top price has gone from $89 to $99 to $139 for the regular price during season. We've also had a dramatic increase in membership, about 400 new members. And we have the highest we've ever had as full members with 360, with rackets members at 124, and with, my recollection is about 700 social members. Home turnover is low. New buyers are becoming new members and being active in the club. Let me talk for a minute about club finance. I'll talk about some principles and then touch on UPCC versus other clubs. The most strategic issue the board has, or one of many anyway, club benchmarking says it's the most important, is where the future homeowners and members are coming from and what are they seeking. What do they want tomorrow to protect your home value going forward? Every club has a footprint, and the goal is to properly fund the footprint. And the strategic board governance is toward educating our members, our residents, our homeowners to properly fund the footprint. Another thing that they put forth is that member dues subsidize all activities. We only have about 23% of homeowners who play golf, who are full members. We have about 11% who are active in rackets. We have 54% who are social members. And 15% of our homeowners are not members of the club. Member dues subsidize all activities. Activity participation is always a fraction. And the thing is, the club provides a social fabric so that if I meet someone on a treadmill, I find out they did summers in New England, and we did summers in New England, and the next town over, all of a sudden you have a new friendship. Or somebody is playing golf and is in a foursome, and somebody says, well, I went to University of Indiana. Well, my wife went there too. And all of a sudden, two couples get together for dinner and form a social fabric and a friendship. Most folks here were not born, in fact, all folks here, I think, were not born in University Park. We all came from somewhere else. So that social fabric, that acquaintanceship, that friendship is vital to the success of a club. The other thing I'd note, and we talked about the financial, the club generating a surplus every year. I want that surplus to be small. I want John to deliver value to members such that every dollar you pay in member dues gets returned to you in member value. We have a few extra dollars, bring in a band another night, bring in the violinist on a Friday night roast beef dinner, or give members value. That's our objective. But the strategic focus is looking at putting in the facilities to offer that value, to putting in the activity space so that members can congregate for things from bird watching clubs to scuba clubs, to dancing lessons, to arts and crafts activities, to book clubs and the like. A number of things that we haven't had room for. We've only had room for cards, mahjong, and a limited number of other space. Some other, and this is also from club benchmarking. Let me remind you we've used that term previously. Club benchmarking looks at 1,800 clubs around the country, both residential and freestanding. This information is focused primarily on residential clubs, and some of the charts I'll show you are focused solely on 27-hole clubs in the residential 27-hole clubs in the Southeast Florida, Georgia area. Clubs can't generate enough from efficiency to provide for their long-term capital needs. Efficiency affects 7% of spending. There's a long, about 14-slide presentation that demonstrates that, but I take it as a fact, focusing on cutting and saving will not provide the funds necessary for the capital needs of the club. Some people think our restaurant ought to make money, except that we have only 1,200 homeowners to draw from, maybe 2,200 people, not all of whom are here at one time. And almost everybody wants to eat between 5:45 and 7. So you have a capacity issue and you cannot turn a table. When we have members sitting there who want a comfortable, relaxed meal, they want the bartender or server to know what drink they want. They want to know that they're gluten-free or diabetic or what have you. And they want that customized service, and they want to chat after dinner. So the fact we can't turn a table like a restaurant can. And we also, in the bar, we give a good pour. We customize menus. We have a reasonable pricing for the quality of the food we offer. So in almost all clubs, food and beverage loses a little bit. In the better clubs, food and beverages loses a little more. And if we open up more nights or more locations, we will lose a little bit more than we have in the past. Lose will be subsidized, is a better way of putting it. Member dues will subsidize that function. Some folks say low initiation fees and low dues attract more members. Again, it's the healthiest clubs have waiting lists and are able to raise their initiation fees and have high dues to provide value to members. The healthiest clubs have a broad range of services and amenities, not just golf. It's rackets, it's pickleball, it's other activities, it's wellness fitness. And finally, restricting capital investment keeps our club affordable. But kicking the can down the road, waiting, having the infrastructure deteriorate and age without being replaced and upgrading leads to fewer new members who want to pay less, and ultimately you have less funds to support the club. And this is what I mentioned earlier. This is from 21 clubs with 27 holes in residential communities in the southeastern US. If you'll see, this is our dues are relatively low, in the 25th percentile versus the average club. Our revenues are about average because we have a high outside golf, which tends to subsidize dues. But the orange line, the yellow-orange line, shows that we are really in the very lowest percentile of capital income. The only capital income, and this is from fiscal 21, or calendar 21 rather, the only calendar income we had was from initiation fees. Where a typical club doing about $10 million of revenue might have as much as $2 million of capital each year for reserves and to replenish the infrastructure they provide. I think I talked this a little bit earlier. I think you've heard a green club is one that's very successful according to club benchmarking. A yellow club's in the middle, and a red club is weak, very weak and failing. And on the green side, you see that increased capital investment allows you to have broader amenities and your quality, outstanding, state-of-the-art facilities, which increases member satisfaction. It increases members' interest in joining. It brings in a higher initiation fees and brings in more members. which generates additional capital income and gives you a return on that invested capital you put into the infrastructure. If you're, on the other hand, if you restrict capital investment, you can't maintain and you have fewer amenities and services. You have lower member satisfaction. In order to maintain capacity, you lower dues, but you don't get the best members. You don't get the ones willing to fully support the club. There's decreased capital income and lower return on available funds.
Steve, excuse me, there's a question in the chat about copying the slides. I must say, Jennifer, correct me if I'm incorrect, but this is being videoed so that anyone who is not here would be able to see this at a later date when we share it with others.
That's right. Now, I'll also provide a copy of all these slides to you, Gio and David, for distribution as you see fit.
We also have Stanhope and Marlo with us in the chat, and welcome back, Vin Benny.
Well, and thank you, and I'll, Rich Tannenbaum is here. I don't see.
And Jim Friedman.
And from the chair of Marlo and Stanhope, I'll see that you get a copy of the slides available to distribute as well. The next two slides, once again, have a lot of numbers on them. I apologize, but this basically is the membership summary. At the end of the year, it showed about 2,150 people who are members. It's over 2,200 at this point in time. Once again, we have the highest membership in each of the categories that we've ever had in the past. Operating dues are going up about 2.5%, or exactly about 2.5% from 22 to 23. And for fiscal 23, we'll be substantially increasing summer membership fees. We also, as I said, don't have capital reserves, so that we are allocating 10% of outside golf to capital, all initiation fees, and we're asking members to pay capital dues, 5% from resident members and 10% from non-resident members. Was there a question? Okay. Okay, this is probably the busiest chart here. This chart, and I'm not asking you to look at it tonight, but if you have a chance, you may want to peruse it later. It compares University Park Country Club with a variety of private and semi-private clubs in the area. Every time I get asked, or I offer which club are we most comparable to, I get told, well, they're private and we're not, so we're not comparable. And then I get another question that says, well, Rosedale is semi-private, but we're much better than them, so that's not comparable. So I'm not sure which is the most comparable in your mind, but this gives you a view of what we have found from other clubs in the area. And when I look at it and I try to look at the pros and cons, we're very competitive in our member pricing, and we're very competitive in the quality of our offering. Okay, the master plan and its impact. Let me do it. Let's do it this way. I spent some time over the weekend after we put a pause on moving forward and said, how do we want to regroup what I'm trying to say here and what I'm trying to communicate? I think, so the thing we're trying to communicate most is the fact, we know we need a golf irrigation system. We know we need the lake banks and bridges or Humpty Dumpty and the whole bridge will fall down, or whatever that riddle was. We know we have to expand the kitchen at some level in order to handle our increased capacity and people's desire for a broad menu. So those are must, but the space needs, we tend to focus on and debate. Let me kind of share with you where we are and what I think we need. We currently have about 1,300 square feet of fitness equipment, machines, and weight area. For those of you who go into the fitness and tennis center and go into the back area, the first thing you'll probably run across, especially in the morning, is somebody on the floor or using a TRX at the entryway or doing stretches, and you have to literally climb over that person in order to get into the rest of the facility. We have no stretch area. We have no area for a trainer to work with individuals. The class studio is 370 square feet. It can barely hold 6 people and an instructor. So what do we need? We probably, from 1,300 square feet, we probably need 50% more space, maybe 100% more space, but 50 to 75% more space. We need 2,200 square feet probably. Class studios for 250 active users, which is arguably what we have tonight. We could get 20 people in a class. For a 20-person class, you need about 1,000 square foot room. Along with an instructor, people facing the instructor, you have to have weights and mats and other activities. We need 2 to 3 rooms. If we go with the spinning, which is a very strong activity for seniors, it's you're basically on a bike without having to worry about balance issues, and very good cardio support. We probably need 800 square feet of space for 15 to 20 stationary bikes. Arguably, we could go with 2 class studios instead of 3. We need some room for reception, administration, and restrooms. And there's a laundry, storage, workshop. We probably need 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. It says 6 to 7 up here, but it's all a function of whether they're together with offices and activity space, and they can share restroom facilities that might be larger, and we can share mechanical facilities and reception areas. When I got the job early, and I think Bill DiPaolo had the same response, we talked to Lori about what we needed most in the club. And she said, the thing I'm out of most is meeting space. All we have is the card room and the varsity club until it gets turned over to drinking on Wednesdays and Fridays. We really don't have it available in the evenings. We don't have enough space, and most people want to meet in the afternoons. They do their sports in the morning. The afternoon is the meeting time, maybe some evenings. We don't have the space available. What do we need? Probably 3 combinable venues where you could put, 50 to 75 people in each with dividers, open it up, and have a room that would seat 200 to 250 people for a larger popular function. People have suggested we use the lakeside room for that purpose. Moving those tables to a side and then trying to, have a meeting that has to end because they have to move the tables back and set up for food service, especially if we want to open up an additional night a week or 2 nights a week to provide food service, that's not an available space. We need activity space. I skipped briefly over, but I shouldn't, the staff offices. For those of you who've been up to the offices upstairs at the Varsity Club, you recognize the access, the difficult, steep staircase, the no windows, no running water upstairs, no conference room, no break room with a coffee pot and place to sit down on a table, shared offices. We're not, as a currently, we have
11 people.
Trying to upstairs, it doesn't say, okay, I thought what do we have you? We have a little under, about 2,200 square feet of space right now. We need about 3,500 square feet of space. We're not talking about palatial offices here. We're talking 100, 120 square feet for an office. We're talking some cubes, a conference room, and a break room. If you need additional restrooms and facilities, of course, it puts on another 500 square feet. But all in all, whether it's 13,000, 14,000, 15,000 square feet, it's going to cost us to put that space in about $400 a square foot. It's going to cost actually more if we try to renovate the Varsity Club, raise the roof, put in some windows, get running water up there, because that building is totally non-compliant with current codes. And any work we do would have to convert the entire building to fit current codes. So that's actually a more expensive solution than putting it somewhere else. Aesthetically, it might be a better solution. We might all be more comfortable with doing that, but that's probably $1.5 million more than a freestanding building. Okay, here's the project worksheet that I revised to kind of talk about the musts that we spoke of earlier and the overall master plan of phase 2. As you can see, if we go with just the musts, we have the kitchen, the bulkheads and bridges, golf irrigation, lake banks, the parking lot, upgrade of the Varsity Club, or move the Varsity Club to the pro shop to the Varsity Club and upgrade that area. We probably expand the pro shop as a new Varsity Club with a deck and be able to serve members more broadly, and potentially put another wing on it. But that 900,000, the bottom number there is not included in the total, but if you included, it's $11 to $12 million bond. It's about $9 to $10 million of cash that's needed. So a $12 million bond is an alternative that handles the musts we've been talking about. If we look at the total plan or the overall phase 2, we add to that the space needs we have, which, for 15,000 square feet at $400 a square foot is $6 million plus $500,000 to clear land. If we use the varsity club upgrade, based on what we've heard from architects, it would cost us about $1.5 million more. So the range there is $15 to $17 million, maybe an $18 to $20 million bond. There are other projects, they're smaller. They can all come out of the capital funds that we generate if we need to. The timing isn't as urgent. And those are also listed below. But the two alternatives, the musts alternatives and the all phase 2 alternatives, are pretty much as outlined there. I think you've seen this slide before, so I won't dwell on it very much, but we asked ourselves in developing the capital plan, should both homeowners and members contribute to annual operating capital needs of the club? These are the break fix needs. These are the needs for the air conditioning or the kitchen appliance that goes down, or the other short-term needs of the club, equipment that expires every 3 to 5 years. And we think that all should come out of member dues and the capital dues that are planned for reserves. But then we ask, who should handle the infrastructure and master plan capital needs? These are long-term investments. These are things that are putting, if you will, an addition on your home that you've invested in, your home being the club, and the whole club enhancing the value of each of our homes. So we feel both homeowners and members need to contribute to the overall infrastructure and capital needs of the club. Just like if your home needs a roof, and a tile roof costs what it costs, but it's an investment you have to make over time. That's part of the infrastructure needs. And if you need additional space let me give another analogy. When I was in New Jersey, we had population grow in the community, and we needed a new middle school. And there was a bond floated to put in a middle school and sports and recreational facilities. Do you vote for it or against it? If it's there to support your home value. If you have good schools, your homes supports the home value and increases the home value. If we have a strong club, it supports and increases our home values. So there are the two options, if you will, and I put those in, I guess, the order I got reversed on, but the must-haves being a $12 million tax-free bond, costing about $750 for the average home annually, and an $18 million tax-free bond for the phase 2 plan, costing about $1,126 annually. Those are the averages. Actually, the median is a little bit less because we have more lower-priced homes in the community than higher-priced homes, but that average is pretty much right. The annual capital dues we talked about for members, a higher additional annual capital assessment for non-resident members. A real estate transfer fee we've kind of put on hold until we get our capital reserve study completed. I expect we need to generate about an additional $300,000 annually. Not sure how that's going to happen right now, but that's probably something we'll deal with in the future. And if we have a strong club, we will have members waiting to join, and we'll be able to increase our initiation fees. And that increase, again, will support capital dues and capital reserves. Capital reserves will come from initiation fees, 10% of outside play, capital dues, and the real estate transfer fee. If we put these in place, I never say never, because somebody may one day want an equestrian farm here, but I think if we put these in place, this will cover our capital needs long into the future. What it won't cover is the things we need to build and put in place over the next 5 years. Let's look at the impact of these two alternatives on Lansdowne and Heathfield. I can provide separate reviews later for Stanhope and Marlow, but I focus today on Lansdowne and Heathfield. But if we use the same formula, the average home in Lansdowne and Heathfield were actually very close, about 559,000 in Lansdowne and 562,000 in Heathfield. So about $560,000, the average home in either community. If we use the formula for the bonds that we used earlier, where half of the cost is spread equally among all homes and half based on market value, with a musts only with a $12 million bond, it would be about $819 a year. With the $18 million bond, it'd be $1,227 a year. That would be a fixed annual obligation in November 23. The smaller bond is $408 less. $408 a year. Are the projects worth $408 to us? Those optional wants worth $408? That's a question you'll each have to consider. This just shows the average value in each neighborhood with some other neighborhoods. I think White Ridge, Wentworth, Virginia Water are on the low end, and Albemarle, Wimbledon, Mayfair tend to be on the higher end. Knightsbridge, I see it there. What are the alternatives to bond funding? When we formed the recreation district, we became subject to a lot of state law. Your 4 or 5 elected board members can't talk to each other except in an announced public meeting published in a paper a week before that conversation occurs. That's pretty difficult. And so recognize that when each of us isn't completely in sync on something, it's because it's not easy. I'm not saying it's impossible. We spent a lot of time working to get together, but we're not allowed to speak to issues before the board because of Florida sunshine laws. But the advantage of moving forward with the recreation district is that we could issue municipal bonds. Municipal bonds are the lowest cost form of financing available to virtually any entity in the United States, other than the federal government, which gets a little better. The interest rates currently are between I sort of saw 4.4 today for a municipal bond that's A-rated, which is something that I think we could achieve. But our financial advisors say by the end of the year, it's likely to be 5.5%, and that's what's been in our calculations. A bank loan is really unavailable to us. We don't have sufficient cash flow or security for a bank loan, and in any event, it would be higher cost than a municipal loan. UPCAI reserves are needed for their purposes, and there were legal hurdles. That's just not an option. We examined it 4.5, 5 years ago when we were looking originally at the purchase. One option is an annual assessment. If we need $12 million, so we assess $3,200 or so per home per year for 3 years. But that makes the current homeowners pay for the Gulf irrigation system and other musts that have a 30-year life. Why put it on the current homeowners who can be spread over the longer term? And just piecemeal annual capital contributions will never build enough reserves to do what we need in a timely manner. Our club will, the infrastructure of our club will deteriorate. Before I go here, let me just go back and make the point here again. I think most of us are agreed we must do the musts. If we do the musts for Lansdowne and Heathfield, we're talking $819 a year on average. If we get the wants, the things, the musts are things you don't see. You're not going to see the irrigation system. You may see the lake banks and bridges. I don't think you'll see the kitchen, although you'll get the benefit of the service. But for things that you could embrace and enjoy, the activity space, the fitness wellness opportunity, and we need to support our staff. We want to have exemplary service. For exemplary service, you need exemplary staff, and you have to treat them with first-class facilities, not overly spacious. And we're talking a difference of $400 a year. Okay, let me do something else I did here. It takes a lot of work to curate, if you will, the cost of living in University Park versus homes in Lakewood Ranch. And in this case, we explored some specific homes in Lakewood Ranch. We drilled down as best we could into their HOAs and their CDDs and their fire district fees and what's in it and what's not in it. And we took a look. And I compared initially a home in Heathfield at 7667 with an assessed value of $482,000 with a home in Lakewood Ranch in Silverwood with $489,000. And I did a calculation, tried to eliminate the differences. We get Comcast cable with all the channels, and that has value. They don't have that over in Lakewood Ranch. And they also, in some cases, have landscaping. It may be different than what we have in landscaping. I compared them. And both Lansdowne and Heathfield were different. They both came out about, I don't know, $1,000, $1,500 higher than Lakewood Ranch. This was different than I found for Virginia Waters, for Eaton, for Hampton. I was trying to figure out why, and I couldn't. But the results are there. And this is after a new bond, by the way. This is the cost of their CDDs along with our 2019 bond and imputing an $18 million bond here. Okay, this is the worst case scenario, if you will. But it still said we were $1,500 higher, which is not make or break on someone buying a home, but it surprised me. So what then I did was I compared it with a higher priced home in Lakewood Ranch. And I took a higher price, and I worked in with Lansdowne because I had some numbers from Geo. Actually, I used Geo's numbers. And I compared the home there. And when I do that, we have an advantage, and we're $2,700 less than Lakewood Ranch. And I used a lesser priced home in Lansdowne. And again, it was over $2,000 less. And I said, what's going on here? And what I think is, when I look at the difference, it's in landscaping and the amount of open space we have in some of our larger communities, be it Heathfield, be it Lansdowne, and so on. And the cost of maintaining that landscaping is higher in the homes with higher price areas. They're a little larger lots. There's more cost involved. And so in this case, I could have shown a big advantage, but I wanted to be honest with you all and show you both sides of the equation. And I conclude is we're in the same ballpark. We're not out of line. I can go through and sit with you and explain each step and what we know to be included in each one. But the conclusion is we're in the same ballpark. We're not out of line, even if we go with the full phase 2 bond investment. Okay. You're very quiet of the 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th of these I've done. And I've never done one before with 4 neighborhoods present, and you've been remarkably silent. I hope you're listening, or there isn't a good ball game on tonight, or what have you.
Nobody looks like they're nasty.
Any questions, please?
You have
Steve,
47 participants and you have 1 hand raised.
Yes, Gary Whitkin has had his hands up for quite a long time, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody should have told me. I can't see the hands here.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Please.
Go ahead,
Gary,
Mr. Witkin.
if you unmute.
Thank you. That's all right that you didn't see it, because there's much that I'm missing too. First of all, let me start by just saying this is the most comprehensive information that I've seen so far, and the thought on that your thoughts and plans are what it's impressing me, that you're thinking through so many pieces on the exact questions that I've had in my previous meeting. And I'm impressed with the job you're doing in presenting it. So Having said that, I do have a question for start. What is the imputed tax bottom line versus the regular bottom line on the tax bond? What adds the extra money into imputed?
Could you state that again or in a little different way? I'm not sure.
When you showed on one of the slides, the bottom line on costs, and there's
Right.
also, and then below that, there was an imputed cost. So if the bond went out at $12 million, there was an imputed cost that was higher. I don't understand the vocabulary on imputed. I am there.
Okay, what I was trying to say was that in our first 2019 bond, we got a yield of construction capital about 86% of the, 86% of the bond that was available for use. We had, in other words, the rest.
Yeah, what was the cost?
The rest-
And, yeah,
Excuse me. The rest is a cost of issuance, what's called debt service reserves, where you must keep a year of debt and principal service on with the bond trustee. And then depending on timing, you have what we call capitalized interest, where the reason you don't pay until November 23, if we issue the bond in November 22, a year of interest is due before the payment is made, and we must have that money sequestered as well. So what I was doing was basically imputing what the bond value would need to be.
I see. All right, well, thank you for explaining that. So there's about a 20% that's hitting us on, from other sides. So all that money, whatever we raise, is not all going to the bottom line to fund these projects. Unfortunately, there are other costs, I'm sure, legal, whatever. As the higher capital, as this capital gets put to use, are you feeling pretty certain that the expense side necessary to sustain the increased capital will be there? So I've renovated 100 stores in my life, and when you renovate, in this case, it's different because it's more food and exercise. You're going to have additional costs. You're going to have cleaning costs. Every power, electric, water, there and manpower. Is the expense side of the ledger attached as well to the capital side?
What we've done, and it's available, but it's complex, is do a pro forma 5-year forecast, which looks at not increasing dues in the rate we have without any jump adjustments, increasing the operating cost, adding the amount of staff necessary, and we find we get a surplus, and we can do that within the framework of our operations. Gary, if you'd like to, it's still in a gestation process. We're iterating it, but I'd be pleased to share it with you or anyone else. Once again, it's all a function of the assumptions we use. I think we've got some reasonable assumptions in place about increased use of power, increased maintenance of the facilities, increased staffing where appropriate. The biggest increase in staffing is if we go to additional nights of dining or additional locations for dining.
Yeah. Okay. So you're trying to anticipate the additional costs necessary in there, and that's you've garnered that. You've answered my question. Thank you. So the future expenses are hopefully coinciding with whatever additional capital that we are expending.
That's correct.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, thank you for the explanation again. I think this has gone a long way towards helping me understand the priorities. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions from the 43 people who are on the call?
Larry, Lawrence.
Yes, I see a hand.
If you have a question.
Physical hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, please go to the reactions button and use the raise your hand function so that we can call on you in order.
I see Larry Newman's physical hand.
I don't have a reaction button.
That is your reaction button.
There is one at the bottom of the screen on Zoom.
Okay,
It's
well,
okay. Don't ask the question.
Larry, go ahead.
Steve, I think your presentation was outstanding and was a step forward from the prior preservations we've seen. If we're going to live in a community we're proud of, we need to get this done. And I'm very frustrated with our inability to get the ball over the goal line. What can we do as a community to get this done before we have 7% interest rates?
Well, I'm clearly I'm trying to do what I can, Larry. That's about all I can say. I think we need, for those of you who listen, who understand, well, I hope your views are to the broader amenities. Either way, speak to your neighbors. Let's get support for getting something done here in the not too distant future.
Rich Tannenbaum, you have a question. If you want to mute, please.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I had to wear my glasses and stick my nose against the computer to see some of your charts, but that's okay. Couple of questions. Go over how much it costs us if the rates go up for bonds, each 0.5%.
It's about $625,000 per 0.5%. So if you impute that over 1,200 homes, it's going to cost you $50 for the same kinds of money per 0.5%. It varies as it goes up because a higher percentage needs to go into that debt service reserve and into that capitalized interest column. So it's not just a linear projection.
Okay, next. Approximately how long does it take if the community votes for the bond? How long does it take to actually do the paperwork, get the approvals and float the bond?
If we, okay, it depends on how much work is done prior to the bond referendum. Let me try to explain. There's a lot of background work and paperwork that has to be prepared ahead of time, including a package for rating agencies that's almost the final form of the bond. If that's done ahead of time, we're probably 6 weeks from getting cash after that referendum vote is positive. If the referendum vote is negative, however, we will have incurred whatever expense was necessary to bring all that information together. So it's a function of how fast we move forward and our confidence in the referendum succeeding.
Next question. Thank you. Legal costs. Bonds are not cheap. What do you estimate the legal costs are going to be to float a bond 18 million?
They'll be virtually the same as 12 million. Let me put it that way. I expect if you want me to give you an aggregate number based on what we did the first time, our legal costs will be 160,000. Yeah, maybe 200,000. Okay, somewhere in that range.
Okay. The last question. Have you given any thought to functions at the club? I belong to a country club for 25 years in New Jersey. And we had lots of weddings, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and whatever. It was a tremendous source of income. Has any thought been put forward for this?
You need the kitchens and the.
Yeah, you need the kitchens, yeah, and the space, yeah. I just want your thoughts.
Well, prior to COVID, we had a number of functions that were in the Lakeside Room. We're a little bit capacity limited because of the shape of the facility and the like, but they're profitable. I personally wouldn't, given the number of event venues in the Sarasota Manatee area, I wouldn't want to invest in a building just to have events and be able to perhaps subsidize some member dues with more events. I would look more to investing in things that gave our members value. On the other hand, I'm not taking away from the fact that I think we should promote events. We're in the process of hiring a new chef. I think he performs a lot of events, and his background has a lot of event function strength in it, and we look to doing more of that as the remnants of COVID finally get fully behind us.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much for your presentation.
Steve, we have a gentleman who has Joan's iPad who is next on the list of questioners. Go right ahead. Could you identify yourself, please?
Unmute.
You're unmute, please.
Unmute.
Oh, that's much better. Michael Richker and Joan Bloom, we live in Heathfield.
Hi, Michael, how are you?
Oh, excellent. And I want to thank you for this wonderful presentation. And I'm sending in my check for $1,227. My question is, are new residents who move into UTC required to belong to the country club?
New residents who are not kin to the former owner are required to belong to the country club.
Okay, thank you.
And now we have Gary.
But I'm not.
We have Gary with another question. Gary? Could you unmute, please?
I don't see him there. He must have stepped away for a moment.
He's there.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that. I just have a suggestion. You know, part of what you're doing now is doing a great job of trying to market the plan to the community. I think one of the biggest, from everything I've heard from fellow residents and everybody around it, is, and certainly from me, is the concern about phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. I think anything we can do to shut down the conversation as to why a phase 3 should not be necessary. Like you stated in the presentation, you're hopeful, and I know you can't say ever, but you're hopeful that you have planned this so that we won't need another round of this. Anything we can do to demonstrate that to the community, to show a 5-year capital plan, expense plan, and beyond, that says, here's how we came up with this. We had to make up for a quick reaction to phase 1. Now we're in phase 2. And hopefully, based on what we're discussing now, and here's why, we shouldn't be able to, shouldn't have to pull a cord on phase 3 years from now. That's the bigger concern. I think when you do, if we don't do that, we have credibility in the outside community as to whether or not we've got this covered, and certainly on the inside, which is where the questions are coming. So it's just a thought on how to market it.
Okay, thank you, Gary. I put up a slide that is based on the initial presentation. What it shows is that were we to have a bond that generated, this was a $15 million bond. It hasn't been updated at this point in time, but that generated nominally $13.5 or so million of construction funding. And what would happen, and that would be our source of funds. And then we use funds. But if you can see the green would build up our capital reserves so that in 5 years, with the plan put forth, with capital dues, with a sequestration of 10% of outside golf revenue, 5% capital dues from residents, 10% capital dues from non-residents, and a real estate transfer fee that totaled $300,000 a year, we get to build capital reserves so we'd have over $4 million in 5 years. And that would, at least to some extent, alleviate the concern that you've presented.
I think that in concert, with how you're developing your expenses, as we discussed earlier, to go with this. It's not just the CapEx, but that you're considering the expenses. Here's what the graph looks like. We've got this covered, guys, for the next 5 to 7 years or whatever. I think that will mean a lot to the community.
Okay. Well noted, and thank you.
Steve, I don't see any other hands up at this point unless there is someone else who has a question. David, do you have some comments? Because originally it was Lansdowne and Heathfield, and we really love the fact that some of our other neighbors have come here, particularly those of us who were on the planning group who identified these musts and wants some years ago. I'm in the Newman category of get it over the line. David, any comments?
Only that, Steve, I very much appreciate this presentation. Frankly, I wish we had started this path with things like this. It would have probably defrayed some of the angst in the community about the rumors and innuendos and hearsay. But I think as we move forward, the more we get this information out, and the comment that was just made about showing the future, that we're not going to be knocking on everybody's door every 2 years for another bond issuance, I think would go a long way. But this has been super. I very much appreciate it, Stephen. I know you put some effort into it at the last minute to do some of the real estate things, and I really appreciate that.
Can I ask a question of them?
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. You wanted to say something?
Well, if there are no more questions from you all, I have questions for you all. And that is, what suggestions do you have to get the word out to the community? Some people are having a very hard time listening, but and don't have the patience to go through this kind of detail. So if you have suggestions, contact me. I welcome those.
Deborah, it's kind of a shame if this is so important, not only to comprehend why we're doing it, but what the numbers are. And if you don't have patience to listen to facts, to make an educated decision later this year, there's something wrong with the audience, because we need these facts. We need them out there, and people have to pay attention, because they're not going to be able to make that educated decision, and that'll affect all of us. So I think if you need to, make a simplified version of this with maybe not the the busy charts or summarize the busy charts. But this word has to get out. It's got to get a very wide audience. I think it's an excellent presentation. I think it answered a lot of questions, and the indication of that, I think, is the lack of questions here, because I don't think anybody on the call is bashful.
You're very right, David, and we have to give kudos to you, Deb, for putting the communication in the communication, because that's what we need to get the facts out, and not, as Gary said earlier, the rumors that fly around with misinformation. Even on the last RD call, which was very, very well attended with over 200 people, the lack of information from some of the questioners was, to me, stunning. And this puts paid with the detail that you gave, Steve, to the truth. And that's what we have to get out there and communicate, communicate, and communicate. Any other last minute questions?
Okay. Thank you all for attending, and appreciate your attention and questions. Have a good evening.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Thank you,
Steve.
Steve.
Thank you,
Great
Steve.
job. Thank you. Thank you. And Jennifer, we have to get a note out certainly to Lansdowne and Heathfield. Very few of Lansdowne missed this, but I still want to send it out as a video link afterwards, please. And I would hope that Jim,
Yes, I want that too.
you would be interested in it.
Sure.
And who else is there?
Steve, this is Al Sturdivant. I would like a copy as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
Heathfield
we can
definitely.
get it to
Okay.
everyone, and please share that with your neighbors and
And
friends.
Stanhope, please, Jim.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Sorry,
Steve,
Rich.
just, can I ask a quick question? Something that
Let me make one, okay, go ahead, but I want to make one more point, thank you very much to Jennifer for staying late here and in orchestrating this for us.
Here, here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
As always.
Jim, you had a question?
Very helpful.
Great job, guys. Really, really good job.
Hey, there was a question out there.
I did have a quick question. I think I know the answer.
It's Al.
For the
ahead, Al.
Al Sturdivant. For the referendum, I guess, Steve, you will know the answer. What's required? Is it a simple majority in terms of the approval?
What is required in order to get approval for the bond? Is that the question?
Yes. Is it a simple majority or?
It is a majority, well, there is one vote per home. So there'll be 1,202 eligible voters. And we need a majority of those who vote to say yes.
And just a simple majority, it will be basically, you split that number in half, 603 votes.
That's correct. Or you don't even need, if only 800 people vote, you need 401.
Of the voting population.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other comments before we close? Thank you for the evening. Thanks for the claps from Ronnie Lowndes, who's also been helping Deb. And thank you all for attending this evening.
Hey,
Much
Steve.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Gia,
Yeah.
can I ask just Steve one question before we go? Steve, if we go for the smaller bond and it is, let's say it's approved, is there a statute that says we have to wait X number of years before we can go for another bond?
No, the only reason to split it, no, there's no reason. There may, the costs of doing it, there's certain fixed cost of issuing the bond, and that cost will be basically borne twice if we issue two bonds.
Okay, but this,
Also, small bonds require as much work as larger bonds. So that while a financial advisor or a council might want 0.5% for a larger bond, they might want 0.6% for a smaller bond, because the work is the same. I just offer that. Thank you.
So I think that's something that the committee needs to make clear to our neighbors who feel that we should go for a smaller bond now and go for a larger bond later. We need to make clear to them the cost implications of doing that.
Yeah, and one thing that that's been said earlier, if the difference is truly $400 a year per home,
What's that by month?
You think about that, if we raise the dues by $400 a year, you're right, but okay, $400 is what it is. Okay, and look at all we could potentially get for that extra $400. That's the part that we need to think about.
That's a big part of pushing this over for another $400.
That's right.
Yes, it's like 35 bucks a month. That's it.
Yep, you got it.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jennifer.
you.
You can close us down.
Thank you.